as I mentioned a while ago, the Colorado Supreme Court's decision this week to disqualify former President Donald Trump from its state primary ballot, effectively eliminating the leading opposition to President Biden in an election year. Folks, all of this just demonstrates the steps that the left is willing to take in order to grasp and hold on to power. And after years of all of us listening to the left fear-mongering over various threats to democracy, this, what they are doing, is what voter suppression looks like. So how big a threat are these tactics really to our constitutional republic? Well, joining me now to discuss this is our very own president of the Family Research Council, Tony Perkins. Tony, you got a lot to be doing today. Thanks for taking some time to join us. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. I like the red and green that you're wearing there. That's very Christmassy.
Yeah, I've actually got a little Christmas tree standing here beside me as well. From different angles it can be seen. But listen, I feel like we ought to exchange seats. I ought to be coming on and you hosting this. But listen, I appreciate you taking time to come on. This is a huge issue that's taking place right now in our country. It's unprecedented, quite frankly. We have... in fact, our country would sanction, Tony, we would sanction other countries if they were interfering with elections like this and attacking a political opponent in another country. What's your take on all this?
Yeah, Jody, as you and I were talking earlier today, I think this is quite significant. And I think we need to step back and look at this in its totality. This goes back to when Donald Trump was president, and we saw these two unprecedented, as you used that word, we're using that a lot these days, two impeachments of Donald Trump that went nowhere because there was no substance to them. But, you know, these provisions, as we've seen the Colorado court use, the discrediting him or removing him from the ballot because they claim that he is guilty of insurrection, that, you know, they cannot be judge and jury and come up with this on their own, but they're doing it anyway. But here's the point. These things are, as we've described, kind of emergency provisions in our Constitution. It's break glass in case of emergency. You don't do this over and over again. So what they're doing is they're using these emergency provisions, these safety valves in our Constitution to gain what they cannot do politically. And this is doing grave damage to our republic. And so for, you know, now we see, you know, Joe Biden, the impeachment inquiry beginning into him. Of course, people are saying, well, this is just tit for tat. Well, you know, that's a problem that you're going to have when you're using these tools so frequently, is that you never know if it's being used for justified means or if it's being used for political means. But then you have this state court that you talk about activism, stepping in and declaring that Donald Trump cannot be on the ballot because he's guilty of insurrection. They can't do that. They're doing it, but this again is doing grave damage to our republic, and we cannot long stand if we continue to see this type of stuff happen.
Yeah, and it's looking to me, Tony, like this is the same song, the second verse, a little bit louder, a little bit worse, as the saying goes, where before the last election cycle, we had the emergency of COVID, and for that reason, we need to change our election laws. And now we have another emergency, supposedly. Donald Trump was involved in an insurrection, which he was acquitted of. I mean, but yet again, another emergency. It seems like we're watching a pattern to prevent the voters and the will of the people at the ballot box from being expressed, and by so doing, potentially destroying our entire election process.
Right. These provisions that were in our Constitution were put there by the founders in this extreme circumstance where you would use them like a fire extinguisher. You don't use it every day. You use it once and then it's gone. And so they're using these over and over, and they're becoming not constitutional tools, but they're becoming political tools. And I guess, Jody, I want to go to how do we respond to this? Because I've heard from a lot of folks in the last couple of days. That's why I wanted to come on and talk with you about this. You know, a lot of Christians saying, well, you know, what's going on here? Look, this is a battle for our republic. This is a battle between good and evil. It's much bigger than just the United States of America, quite frankly. This is what we read about in the New Testament about the spirit of the lawless one is already at work, ushering in eventually the lawless one, the Antichrist. This is setting the stage for that, and the church is the restrainer. And it's interesting. You look at three of the four justices there in Colorado that voted to remove him from the ballot. They all came from Ivy League schools that had been created as divinity schools. What a picture of the apostasy in America when it comes to the church. And if we're to preserve the republic, it's going to require Christians in this country to once again understand the times and know what to do. And it's not to shrink back in silence. It's not to be intimidated. It's not to feel threatened. It's not even to be angry. It is to step forward with clarity and with boldness. We've got a constitution. We have truth. We know what it is. We have to stand on it. We have to defend it. By no means should we be quiet in this hour. And what is happening to Donald Trump is a travesty. And whether or not you like Donald Trump or not, I happen to like him. But regardless, you need to speak up. The church needs to speak up with a voice and say, this cannot stand. We will not let it stand.
Absolutely. I couldn't put an exclamation point more soundly on what you just said. We've only got less than a minute, but this really leads to the role of the church, the role of pastors, the role of believers in the marketplace. What can believers do to be most effective at this hour in our country?
One, Jody, I would say be in the Word of God so that you understand what is happening here, because we're getting sucked in from the media saying this is just politics. This isn't politics. It's playing out in the political sphere. This is spiritual, and there is an all-out spiritual war happening in our nation. And if we do not engage, it's not just the country we lose. We will usher in the unrestrained lawlessness that we read about in end times.
Absolutely. Tony Perkins, it's an honor to serve with you. Thank you for your incredible leadership here at the Family Research Council and in our entire nation. Grateful for you taking time to be with us on Washington Watch. Merry Christmas to you and your family.